I've had a request from a viewer of the channel. I don't know how many videos they've viewed. They've definitely viewed at least one because they left a comment on one of the videos. Maybe they've watched a few. But in that comment, they asked for me to do something with my chi. So that is exactly what I'm going to do in this episode of Chi Life. So I'm back at the abandoned tennis courts, a little bit of an edgy environment for a little bit of an edgy topic. This is where I tend to come for the more edgier Chi Life videos. Alright, I'm going to get straight down to it here, alright? I am going to do something with my Chi. So watch closely so you don't miss it. Ready? I did it. Did you notice? Do you know what I did? Alright. I'm going to do it again in case you missed it. So, watch closely, and... Alright, I did it again. Any ideas? Any guesses? If you guess what I did, you can put it in the comments below if you like. You can show that you knew it before I actually explained what I did. So I'm being a little bit facetious. I actually did something a couple of times intentionally, and a couple of times I did just involuntarily, just as a natural reflex, but it was still my chi that I used to do it. I blinked. Amazing, right? I did that with my chi. So, yeah, I'm being a little bit facetious, or rather humorous, let's put it that way, because I do appreciate the person making that comment. And I think it's good because it brings out a topic that I think it's worthwhile discussing, because I wouldn't say it's necessarily common, but it's not uncommon for people to get sometimes a bit of the wrong idea about what chi is and what it means to use chi and do things with our chi. And, you know, I can see why maybe they get that idea. Unfortunately, over the years, a lot of Qigong and practices that use Qi, of course, Qigong is a term that covers all of the different practices that develop skill with and work with our energy. But there's many different types of applications. Some of these practices and the use of chi, of energy within them, has been presented as a mystical, magical, even supernatural type of a thing. And so it's not surprising that people sort of take on that idea and, you know, they run with it, and that feeds into their understanding or the impression of chi and what it means to do things with chi. I don't think it's very useful though. It can actually be harmful. I'll probably get to that later, but for now we'll just focus on whether it's useful or not to think in that way. When someone thinks of working with chi, doing something with your chi, with your energy, as mystical, magical, or supernatural, this can often lead them in one of two directions in how they then deal with things, interact with things. So on one hand, they can, as a result of that, they might go, wow, this is fascinating, this supernatural type, sort of thing. And then they go chasing that supernatural, that magical experience or skill with energy. And they do that through doing different practices and so on. And, well, I mean, that might be disappointing for a start. And it might stop them from getting the actual benefits of the practices that they do. And that's also where it can often be harmful, because they might push themselves in ways that are unhealthy because they're seeking this supernatural thing, and that can lead them to do things that aren't healthy for them. The other side of that, if someone has this idea of chi as supernatural, paranormal even, mystical, magical, is that they can, rather than that, motivating them to sort of chase after it, that can sometimes lead some people to just completely write off anything that makes reference to chi, working with our chi and the effects of working with our chi and so on. And, of course, that's probably better than the other. That's probably better than someone chasing the supernatural. But it means that they miss out on a lot of potential benefit that they might have from practicing Qigong, the benefits that come from that, and from understanding some of the things that come from, starting to understand our Qi and what that means. So, yeah, I think it's worthwhile talking about this and maybe helping a few people to get a more grounded understanding of what Qi is, what that means, how it's useful to us. And I will talk about some of the more unusual aspects of working with our Qi as well, because some things can really seem quite unusual to someone who without experience, but I'll get into that later. For now, I'll talk just about some of the much more practical things, and I think this is where we should start. So I'm going to do some other things with my Qi, again, just to illustrate. So here we go. I'm moving my fingers. Whoa! If you look very closely, now there might not be a lot that's visibly discernible, but maybe you might be able to tell there is blood pumping through the blood vessels inside these muscles on my face. That's Qi is doing that as well. There are nerves being active, not just causing my mouth to move and my tongue, to produce my voice, but in lots of ways right through my body. This is all Qi, the natural functions of our body. Now, as part of that, of course, my mind is active and directing what's happening. This is all Qi. It's a very straightforward, natural, healthy thing. What is maybe a little bit different in the approach when we talk about this as Qi, as opposed to just talking, moving my fingers, right? If we get to looking at the Qi aspect of it, it means that we're tuning into things in a more subtle way. We're looking beyond the gross external manifestation of what's happening with our energy and digging into the flow of energy that's behind that. Again, this is just natural energy within our body, nothing more, nothing less. But we're tuning into it in a much finer way. Now, there's lots of benefit from that. That means that we can resolve things, issues, things that aren't working properly in our body. We can tune in this more subtle way to recognize, hey, what's happening with the energy there, so that we can cause it to flow where it needs to and the amount it needs to and so on, to have things like our blood flow be healthy, our muscles be healthy, and so on, right? Pretty straightforward in many ways. And this really, I think, should be everyone's first focus in working with Qigong. As you develop further and you tune in more and more to the fine details of your energy and its flow, this can lead to a richer experience of what's going on within your own body and even in the environment around you. It's still all natural. It's still just natural, normal things happening, but you're tuning in at this finer detail. And that can then start to lead to some of the applications of doing things with your Qi that can seem unusual, that might seem like something mystical, magical, supernatural, if you don't understand that it's actually just a refined use of what's occurring naturally all the time anyway. So something that's very obvious, right? So one of the areas of application that gives very obvious visual evidence of what's happening is within the martial arts. This is one area where there's often, obvious application. And so one of the, the areas of skill that I'm a bit reasonably well known for is iron shirt skills. So this is an area of Kung Fu, and it comes from Qigong. So it comes from developing our awareness of our energy and developing that, but it's applied often within martial arts, within Kung Fu, where you develop great physical resilience and control of your body so that you can withstand very powerful blows against your body. So if anyone's interested, you might want to look up there's a few different iron shirt things that I do. but the one that I have the most videos of is, I have a separate YouTube channel. I haven't done anything on it in a long time, but it's called Jump on John. And if you look at that, you can see hundreds of people all over the world climbing up onto things and jumping on me and landing on me with their feet. And yeah, that's an example of using my chi in a way that's unusual now. And for someone who doesn't have enough understanding to sort of think through and understand the different parts of what's happening, one, they can just think it, well, maybe it's some kind of trick. I've had people think that. Or if they are someone who's more grounded and they do think it through, they might then be inclined to, and they wouldn't be wrong in this, to think, oh, well, that's him just using all his muscles and bracing his body, and that's all it is. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Yeah, that's not wrong. But the thing is then, can other people who've got strong muscles, can they all do it? Generally, the answer would be no. Do they all have the potential to do it? Yes. The key is, through my Qigong practice and my Kung Fu practice connected to the Qigong over many years, I've developed a subtle awareness of what's going on within my body, within my muscles, so that I'm able to engage them and use them very effectively to receive and dissipate force. So it is something physical that I'm doing, and I'm using that sensitivity, that awareness from working with my energy in subtle ways to be able to use that effectively to do something physical, right? But it can seem unusual if you don't understand that, or it can seem, it's easy for people to drift into that mystical, magical, sort of supernatural interpretation. There are other aspects of working with our energy, again, that can possibly seem, maybe mystical, maybe magical, and these are not so visible. And so one of these, very simple one, is when you start to feel the energy that extends out from your body. So not just inside your body. I've talked about the blood flow, the nerves and all that sort of thing. We tune into those within our Qigong practice. But going beyond that, we're also able to tune into direct energy that extends out from our body. This can seem, again, mystical, magical, if you don't understand it. And it just takes a little bit of thinking through, and certainly with experience of doing the practices, then you realize, hey, this is actually pretty normal. Because we're all radiating energy all the time, right? That's not an extraordinary claim. We're all radiating heat. We are all creating a magnetic field from the electrical activity through our nerves, through the cells of our body, through our organs. That extends out beyond our body. We are all, through our movement, creating vibration that extends out beyond us. We're all radiating energy all the time if we're alive, right? That's not an extraordinary claim. But then being able to sense and tune into that energy, that's where it gets unusual, because that's not something that people do every day. But as you practice Qigong, you might start to do that every day, or at least periodically. And with practice, so one of the first examples of this that you might come across if you're practicing Qigong is forming a ball of energy between your hands. It's one of the easiest, most natural shapes to form this energy into, and to strengthen that energy and to really tune into it. And it's a great exercise. Actually, the last vlog I made was about essentially the benefits and potential dangers of forming balls of energy, because sometimes people get too focused on it, so you might want to have a look at that as well. But yeah, super simple, and you start to go, oh, you actually start to become familiar with this energy that's radiating out from you all the time and extending out from your body. With enough practice, and as you develop skill, you can actually start to use that energy in useful ways. The most common ways that this energy is normally used, there's two ways this energy is most commonly used. One is in healing. So using that energy that radiates out from your own body to affect the energy of someone else. Now, again, this can, without enough understanding, that can seem, whoa, mystical, magical. You're like using invisible energy to do something to someone else. we're all radiating energy all the time. It's just most of us haven't developed skill with, well, awareness of that energy and skill with it. But when we do, of course, the energy we radiate out affects the energy of other people. And this can be used for healing. It can be used, much as that energy is affecting what's happening inside our body, we can use it to affect what's happening inside someone else's body so that it can function more effectively and be healthy. Another application of this, and again, this is where maybe it can seem a bit magical, is this same kind of energy that extends out from our body, and we can use it in healing, can also be used in fighting. Yeah, generally, as a rule, and again, not just to do with Qigong, but anything in life, if it can heal, it can also harm. And it's about how you use it. And so that same energy can be used in a fighting context, right? When people think about this, if they have sort of a magical, mystical overlay to how they think about it, they might expect to see fireballs and things like this affecting the other person. But it's actually very subtle. You're not going to see much at all. And this is what can, I think, lead people to think, oh, it's a trick, it's magical, it's just in people's minds, so on. But that, again, that energy that extends from our body, it has the ability to influence what happens in the body, right? And so if someone uses that energy, you're not necessarily going to see anything happen to them, but you'll see the result of what happens. That certain parts of their body weaken, and maybe they're not able to brace parts of their body effectively, and that makes them more prone to being harmed within that fighting context. And it's an interesting area of application, fortunately, one that hopefully we don't need to use very often in this day and age. But it can seem really magical, because all of a sudden, in that fighting context, someone is responding in a way that they normally wouldn't. They're getting hurt maybe by a blow that you think, that wasn't hard, why did that hurt them? They must just be faking. But it's because of the power of the energy to disrupt. It's not that the energy has enough power necessarily to do a lot of damage on its own, it's that it disrupts what's happening in their body, and their body is then weakened and more susceptible. If you think about this, for energy to be effective, it doesn't always require a lot of gross power. It's the information that it carries and the effect of that. So you're watching this video right now. If you think about the energy that brings this video to you, so there's different parts of that. You're probably watching on some device that, it's sending light to a screen, and it's not a huge amount of energy, but that's a bit of energy that's required to generate that image on that screen. But what about the energy actually required to send the information to create that image on that screen? How much gross power does that energy have? Not much at all. It takes tiny amount of energy to carry that signal, to carry that information. But then that is amplified, turned into an image. Then as you take that image in and you take the information from it, that may have a massive, profound effect on you. I'm not saying this video is necessarily going to be that massive and profound, but other things of that type, where that information has a profound effect and can then affect what happens inside your body, and maybe affect you for the rest of your life. Simple example of this, to get away from the profound, you might be watching a video, and in that video there's a jump scare which makes you all of a sudden have a sudden response, right? But tiny bit of energy, but it changed something, sent something to you, and it made your heart beat faster, and it made you contract your muscles, and wow! It's more along those lines that this is how the interaction between our energy works, the subtle aspects of our energy, used in combat, used in healing. It doesn't necessarily, there doesn't need to be any fireballs, anything like that, for it to be powerfully effective in changing things within someone else's body, someone else's system. And then that, of course, follows up with physical change, whether that be physical impact, in the case of fighting, or physical changes in what's happening inside someone's body. So, yeah. And that, without enough understanding, that all can seem magical, but when you understand it, I'm not saying this is the most brilliant explanation of it, but you start to, oh yeah, that's useful. So anyway, I did something with my chi. I did a whole lot of things with my chi in this video. Hopefully it gave a few people some food for thought. Maybe it might help a few people to think about chi in a more grounded way, and to understand more the value of working with your chi, the value of tuning into understanding a bit more what's happening within your body, and how that can then help you to be healthier, more vital, help things to work better in your body. How that can, and look, and that's all I suggest people focus on for quite some time. Later on in their Qigong practice, they might then become interested in using some more subtle aspects of that energy for healing, maybe within the martial arts and so on. It takes practice, it takes time to develop the awareness and the skill with the energy before you can do that in an effective way. And really what's most important to begin with is simply becoming aware of and mastering ourselves. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. I've had a few people sort of send me messages and say, hey, been missing your vlogs. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll start doing some again. I've just been busy, lots to do. But yeah, I thought this was an interesting one to reply to. And again, I do appreciate that person leaving that comment. I hope they get to watch this one, and I hope they sort of take the message from it in a way that's useful to them. So yeah, if you've enjoyed the vlog, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all those good things. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.